actually going to start off with some college football today, as we had a huge game over the weekend where Tennessee upset Alabama 52-49. Last second field goal win for them.
Yeah, it was a crazy game. Definitely the biggest game in college football that week, and probably the biggest game the whole week in general. It's a huge thing to see Alabama go down like that. Tennessee's been a good team this year, and they definitely deserved it, but they had to fight very hard to end up getting this one. So Hendon Hooker goes 21 for 30, 385 yards, throws 5 touchdowns and only one pick. He also carried it 14 times for 56 yards and lost a fumble, but overall had an extremely efficient day. Jalen Wright is the one who led them in rushing with 12 carries on 71 yards. Jabari Small also got 12 carries and 53 yards, so they spread the rushing around a lot. Wright or Small ends up with a touchdown, and then Princeton Fant got a 1-yard touchdown as well. The star for Tennessee, though, was definitely Jalen Hyatt. He got 6 receptions, 5 of those were touchdowns, 207 yards on those 6 receptions. Just a crazy day for him. Every time he caught the ball, he was tearing up the Alabama secondary. Really good day. And the closest guy to him in yardage was Jamel Keaton, who had 78 yards. Not bad at all, but just definitely Jalen Hyatt's day for sure. Christian Charles recovered a fumble from Alabama. Quandarius Robinson is one who fumbled. And then despite missing an extra point early in the game, as Terrence said, Chase McGrath does nail a last-minute field goal to get them the win. It was not a pretty kick, but the point is that it went in. It was a very wobbly, weird angle, but he got it, and they come away with a huge win. Alabama, Bryce Young goes 35 for 52, 455 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Probably the big star for them was going to be Jahmyr Gibbs. He rushed for 103 yards, got 3 touchdowns on the ground. He also got 48 yards in the air. Cameron Latu was leading in receiving with 90 yards, got himself a touchdown as well. Corey Brooks was right behind him, 79 yards and a touchdown of his own. And then DeMarco Hellams is the one who ends up picking off Hendon Hooker. And Will Reichard, their kicker. This is a crucial field goal, giving the Volunteers a super narrow window to actually get to that game-winning field goal. It's only about 20 seconds. And Tennessee's able to just get a few plays quick down there and get it in. They're really going to be looking at that kick and see what went wrong. But I think when you look at the way this game was scored, there's a lot more that went wrong for Alabama before that kick is missed. I think there's a lot they could have done, especially on the penalty side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, that was the big issue for Alabama in the entire game. I mean, the penalties were insane. I mean, that one drive where they were backed up and they had like the illegal motion or like false start, I can't remember one or the other. They had a penalty, then had a third down, then had another penalty. He just kept getting backed up over and over. Had like 3 penalties just in that one little spot. And they're right backed up on the end zone. Got the Tennessee fans right behind them. I mean, it was rough. And Bryce Young seemed pretty cool the entire game despite everything that was going on. But it was rough for Alabama penalty wise. I mean, 17 penalties, 130 yards. I mean, that is just not close to what you want. I mean, they had more penalty yards than they had rushing yards on the day. So it just not good from Alabama. I mean, despite putting up 49 points, your defense allows 52. You have all those penalties. I mean, it was just insane. And Nick Saban, rightfully so, was going crazy on the sideline. But I will say I have never seen a game that I can remember that had so many penalties that decided the game. You know, had so many penalty changing plays. You had the pass interference at the end when Tennessee's driving and it's tied after Alabama just had the missed field goal. They're trying to drive to the end. They throw it up. And of course, again, one of those underthrown balls that turns into a pass interference penalty. They get better field position. They're in line to make that nasty looking kick that ends up winning the game for them. But there were many, many, many plays that you had. I mean, you had the penalty in the end zone where the guy gets taken down by himself essentially, and they call a penalty on that one. I mean, there's a whole lot of penalties, not just for Alabama, but just in general, that definitely changed the way this game looked. But I will say, even though this was an upset, it's not as if like Tennessee was unranked, you know, like A&M was last year and came in and beat them. They were the sixth best team in the country, not being 3. So despite it being an upset, Tennessee was playing amazing football this season so far. So we have to give them a lot of credit just on the season rather than just for beating Alabama. I mean, this was the most even the two teams have been in a long time, and it definitely showed in this game.
Yeah, I think that's something that we definitely have to point out. I mean, last year when A&M gets that big upset on Alabama, I don't think many people were really looking to that game. Nobody was like anticipating that to happen. I mean, people want Alabama to fall like every week, so there's a little bit of anticipation. But with this game with Tennessee, we know that it was 3 versus 6. We know it's going to be huge. We know there's a lot on the line, and it wasn't out of the. It's not like a super crazy thing to think about for Alabama falling to this team, and Tennessee came in and showed exactly why. And I think the move that they make up into the rankings is well deserved. They got a lot that they need to kind of play a little cleaner on. We saw the penalties hit them a lot too. They had some, iffy plays here and there. I definitely think they're not a perfect team, but a top 4 spot is very deserved. Um, do you think Alabama ends up reclaiming a top 4 spot before the season's over, or how do you think this goes for them now?
I mean, knowing Alabama, they would somehow find a way to get back up in the top four. Um, it kind of just depends on what happens above them because I think Alabama will probably win out. It just depends on what happens above them. So,
Yeah.
I mean, they'll probably win the West. Their only threat there is Ole Miss. But besides that, I mean, it just kind of depends. I think if they win out and then whatever happens, maybe Ohio State gets upset, which I doubt. Maybe Clemson, which I doubt. Uh, Ohio State and Michigan obviously play each other. So, if let's say Ohio State, Michigan, they stay in the same spot, they play each other at the end of the season, then, that might kick one of them out. But it just kind of depends. Because obviously both Ohio State and Michigan can't be in the Big Ten title game, being in the same division. But getting back to this game, I mean, Tennessee started out pretty much as good as they possibly can. I mean, Alabama had the ball on the first drive. They could literally get nothing going. And then the next 3 drives for Tennessee were touchdowns. So touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. They're up 21-7. Do have a fumble on their next drive, but then another touchdown. They're up 28-10. And this is not just with Alabama, but any top tier team. If you're the lower ranked team, obviously, again, it's not like Tennessee was unranked, but if you're lower ranked, you're beating a team that you're technically not supposed to be beating, you have to stay on the gas pedal. And that's what they were doing from the beginning. You cannot get up and then just say, all right, let's calm down a little bit. You have to stay on them. And they just kept at it with the offense. I mean, the offense, it's not like their drives were even that long. I mean, all of their drives were 5 plays, 4 plays, 3 plays. I mean, they were getting down the field quick. So obviously their offense was so explosive that day, but they were getting down the field quick, scoring quickly, and then not really allowing Alabama to do anything. Their first few drives, 2 punts and just a field goal. So with that last touchdown, of course, but they didn't allow Alabama to get much going on offense either, while they're scoring a whole lot. So that first half up until near the end, where Alabama actually made it the game 28-20, Tennessee was on top of them the entire time. And that's really what you have to do when you're playing a team like Alabama until they got to the second half where Alabama eventually took the lead at some points, and it looked like Alabama was going to win because of the mistakes that Tennessee was making.
Yeah, I think you give a lot of credit to Tennessee for coming out of the gates and putting up so many points early. Because I think it's almost inevitable sometimes that these teams will slowly collapse. We saw teams do this with Georgia this year already, where they do have a decent lead on them and they start to slowly collapse and there's not enough moving room. So obviously Tennessee does lose that lead, but they had enough on the board and enough fight left in them to kind of come back and hold on to the game. But yeah, I think their fast start is really a big part of their win. It puts them so far ahead and gives them so much room to work with. If they would have played same way in the both halves, I mean, we definitely wouldn't be talking about this big upset today. It wouldn't be the first topic or anything like that. But I think earlier when I was talking about Tennessee has things to clean up, that is what I kind of had in mind, though, is they held the gas in the first half very well, and they kind of let off in the second half, and everyone's kind of thinking, oh no, here it comes. You can't take down Alabama. It's hard to take down Georgia and think of those kind of thoughts. But Tennessee is able to get back through it. Maybe they're helped by the penalties, but one of the things I felt with this game was a lot of the penalties were legit. I mean, it's unfortunate that there's so many penalties, but there's not really a call, not many calls where I thought, well, maybe that could have went the other way. I think there was a lot of really well called penalties in this game. In a year where we've had years when we've had so much talk about like bad refing, I think this one was actually done pretty well. If even that meant like Alabama got pummeled with penalty yards.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, there were some that were like, eh, but for the most part, they weren't, crap penalties. And I'm looking through Twitter as the game's going on. I see a lot of Bama fans are like, oh, so Alabama gets all the calls now, blah blah blah. And yeah, I mean, one game where you're getting railed, but generally Alabama would be favored there. But I mean, that was just, I don't really know how to describe it. It was just really undisciplined play, and that's not what you really see from a Nick Saban coach team. Knowing you got that guy over there on the sideline, literally about to have a stroke, going crazy if he even screw up once. And that punt return, that muff punt return,
That was
I have
bad.
no idea. I'm assuming he they thought that the guy he thought that it was already touched, so he went to jump on it, but it
Yeah,
wasn't live until he actually jumped on it. And then thing is, he tried to pick it. He didn't just jump on it; he jumped on it and then tried to go. I'm like, if you thought it was live at that point, you just literally jump on it and cover up. You know, don't
yeah,
try to pick it up and then start running. And then that's where things went crazy. And Nick was pissed to say the least on the sideline. And as soon as that happened, because they were already up, was you let Tennessee get right back. So I mean, it's like I don't know what the heck they were thinking there, but that was that was a moment, and that kind of thing let them stay right with you after Alabama had coming back in the second half, playing a lot better. Tennessee had a few mistakes. They went for it. First drive out of the half, they went for it on fourth down, didn't make it, and then an interception. And that's the point where you're like, all right, you like you said, you can't let Alabama get back into it, making these mistakes. But they turned it on near the end of the game and matched them. And then you had that missed field goal at the end by Alabama. Again, the penalty near the end zone, and just barely made kick at the end to win it for them. So, other than those mistakes and letting Alabama get back into it, early in the second half, I mean, Tennessee played as well as you possibly can ask for.
yeah. I think the coach did a great job with this game, keeping them in the game, and just knowing at the end of the game, which was such a little time, that they really needed to get down and nail that field goal. You can't go into overtime with Alabama. It's probably not going to end well. So I think they did a great job of closing the game. And I give big props to the team and to the coach for how he coached that game the whole time.